It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
I'm here.
I'm here.
Oh, God. That was scary.
Wow. Wow. In chorus, too. That's pretty awesome. And no cue card held up.
No.
Even if I did, no one would see it. So, hey.
Right. This is audio only.
I hope everybody out there is doing all right. So, what's going on in your corner of the galaxy?
I'm here. No, I'm just messing around. Well, gosh, this week has been all podcast all the time for me. Yeah, I guess mostly you guys too,
Yay.
but I got a little more than you guys did, but not much. So we're obviously prepping for the hashtag all the horror thing. So we recorded our episode for that a little ahead of schedule, but that's all right. We were given a deadline, and we're going to easily meet it, even though it's going to take me a while to edit the thing. And then I also just this afternoon appeared on another show, which I will make sure everybody knows about when the time comes. So I'm going to have 2 appearances in the hashtag all the horror. Yeah, we had a blast. It was a pretty good time. So it's fun, but kind of ready.
You're glad it's over with.
Yeah, kind of ready for a little break from this now. I mean, it's been fun, like I said, but I'm not quite done because, like I said, I still got to finish editing the thing. But yeah, it's a lot to do, really. It's extra stuff.
Yeah, once in a blue moon, it's not too bad.
Right. I mean, it's not anything I didn't volunteer for at this point, so I'm not complaining, really. I'm just...
Yeah. I enjoyed who we had. He was a hoot. I mean, I think I was just laughing the whole time, you know.
Well, both
it was hard to... Yeah, they both were, but I won't give spoilers, but he kept doing something that just, gives you a visual picture, and I just couldn't quit laughing, you know. A lot of singing in that show.
If it's what I think it was, he actually warned me about that ahead of time. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm going to do a lot of this, and he did. And it was hilarious too, for sure.
And it's pretty cool because usually when a topic comes up on our show, I can go, okay, I know Les feels this way, and Thomas will feel this way, and Mike will be this way. So it's kind of neat when you bring in strangers because, we kind of learned how to hit off each other, And so when you throw 2 more, it's just kind of like, wow, it was a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun. And I think we all meshed pretty well, too. So
I thought it went pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard. I thought everybody, it all fit in pretty well.
Yeah.
It helped that we all pretty much shared the same opinion about what we were talking about. That was kind of helped. So.
Kind of helped, yeah.
It was a good thing we were drinking the same stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you brought up a pretty good point. For a while it's been 4 of us, and we may have a 5th, but this is the first time we had 6, and we didn't really step over each other's toes.
Mm-mm.
No.
I was pretty pleased.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like I said, the editing is not particularly difficult because, I mean, we weren't stumbling over each other a lot. It worked together pretty well.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I hope our listeners enjoyed as much as we enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
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 Maybe we'll even get a few more listeners out of the deal. Who knows?
Maybe so.
Could be fun.
Yep. Well, I've been doing like a whole lot of nothing. You know? But see, when I say nothing, I take care of 2 kids during the day that aren't my own, so it's a little bit more stressful. So it's like nothing's not nothing. But I did try to watch, they just released 13 Reasons Why. And, I've watched this for 2 seasons, and you really get invested into your characters. And this season, I'm having a hard time getting past the first episode. I mean, they've kind of thrown a new character in, and it's like, who is this girl? And she's so annoying, which makes everything even worse. And, with some of the trauma that these kids have dealt with and secrets that they've kept, to me, I'm just having a hard time buying into that they would allow someone to come into this group and, they're telling all their secrets to her and, so I haven't seen more than an episode and maybe half of the second because, like I said, it's been really hard to watch, but I really don't like this girl. And I can already tell you, she's going to be the one to sell all of them out. But I think another reason I'm having a hard time is anyone who's watched the show, Bryce is a rapist. He's a dirty, nasty, evil guy. And now, like, the 3rd season, they're trying to give him, like, this really sad backstory, and we're supposed to feel sorry for him. And I'm like, no, he can burn in hell. I mean, oh, boo-hoo, he had a bad home life, So, yeah, I'm having a hard time with that one. So I probably am done with that because I said I hate when they do that. So, yeah. But same thing with the Orange is the New Black. I was so excited that had come out, and I've only been able to watch a couple episodes. It's kind of lost its chemistry. So I've been lazy and watching cartoons.
So the color has faded, huh?
It has. It's now like a creamsicle color. But see, they're not even orange anymore. They're like blue shirts and tan shirts, and I think that's where this show messed up, is when they took them out of the original prison and put them into a different prison where they're like all split up now. It's not the same show anymore, It's the same people, but kind of like
it up.
Yeah. Well, kind of like I was saying, we have a flow to us, a chemistry, and if we tried to change that up, it just wouldn't work, You're changing the recipe of what makes it work. And they did that quite well on both these shows. They've really changed what they were trying to go for, and, like I said, I will never feel sorry for a rapist, so those kind of shows don't appeal to me. So, yeah. Which, once again, changes the chemistry, You had us wanting to burn this guy, and now all of a sudden, oh, he was just misunderstood. Well, yeah, You don't misunderstand what he did, So, yeah. So now I'll have to find something new to watch.
Well, Carnival Row is coming up. Is that what, Amazon Prime?
Oh, yeah?
I believe so, yeah.
That looks really interesting.
Huh. I'll have to check that out. And I'm really getting excited with all these shows that they're saying are coming to Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those look really good. And actually, it's going to be affordable. Now, I'm old enough to remember when you bought cable service. I mean, even now, you still have to individually buy like HBO and that kind of stuff. But Disney was one of those channels that you had to pay extra for, just for that channel. And it was expensive. I mean, yeah, we're talking this is like the 80s, but it was really expensive. So it's kind of nice to see that they kind of dropped their price point, and I don't know if that's to burn Netflix, but
Oh, probably.
yeah, I'll bite. And it's cheaper than DCU, so
There you go.
yeah.
So that's the deal, is that if these services don't price themselves so that people can afford more than one, people are not going to afford more than one. And
Well,
you're
because
forcing
after
them
a
to
while,
choose.
it's no better than cable. If I'm going to have to pay all this extra for this and Hulu and Netflix and Disney and, why am I not on cable again?
It's not any. It never was any better than cable. It's just the alternative. They're just
Right.
trying to take advantage of all of these people who have cut the cable. They're trying to get them back in, and
Yeah.
whether that's going to work or not remains to be seen. I kind of don't think it will.
See, and I'm one of those idiots. I have both. So I have to have the live everyday stuff for during the day. The kids with their cartoons, these kids nowadays. But, we use for the evening when Phil gets home, we watch movies and stuff on Netflix and Hulu. And what we do want to watch, we record so we don't have to sit through commercials.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah. So yeah, we're those suckers, We've bit off from both worlds.
Mm-hmm. Clearly, you're rolling in it, so you can afford to do both, right?
No, the way that they bundle things nowadays, it's actually cheaper if I have a phone somewhere hooked up in my house. But it's cheaper to have all of the services than just to buy one individually. We had looked to cut the cord from, Verizon, and, it was like, well, to get our bill cheaper, let's cut the phone and we'll cut, part of the TV. And the bill actually went up because things weren't bundled anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's honestly why I still have a home phone, too.
Yeah. And isn't that crazy, though? You have more than what you need, but if you only took what you needed, it would be more expensive.
Mm-hmm. That's how they get you.
Yeah. But for the internet that I have to have, the speed, I think my cable service is only like $20 more. So, why not? And no matter how much Netflix and Hulu and stuff you have, I missed my local news in the morning. I have my cup of coffee. I watch how crazy the world has gotten, and then I go about my day. And you can't do that with Netflix and Hulu. Or if you can, and somebody knows, hit me up, send me an email.
Yeah, remind me.
Yep. Yeah, that's part of why we also kept the box, So yeah, that was a whole lot for nothing. So.
Funny how that works out.
Right.
Consistently.
Sorry, but I'm old-fashioned. I'm just kind of tied in with it all. I don't look outside the box. But as far as my week, it's been pretty good. I found that I don't have to go to jury duty. Right?
Yay.
Yay.
And I think they look at it as to my age and the fact that I am retired. They dismiss me because I think they categorize people that are of my ilk as hanging judges. We want to prosecute anything and everything that comes in front of us. And we want to deal them the fullest extent of the law.
So, well, don't you?
Well, yes, but
it's because all that.
Know that.
It's because all that Matlock you watch,
Exactly. Yes. So I have a job that I go to on Tuesdays, and I'm looking forward to that coming up again this week. So that's pretty much my whole week.
Your whole week is working 1 day a week and spending the rest of it getting out of jury duty.
Yep.
Exactly. Yes.
His Tuesdays are to sit and talk with Mitch Alb.
Yes. Yeah. I pretend I'm Maury.
And so far, Mitch has not figured out the difference, obviously.
No.
Oh.
Not the sharpest crayon.
I myself, Les, don't think it's right that people are dismissed because of age, whether it's older age or younger age. So I'd have to say that they missed out on that because you're pretty fair and impartial. So their loss.
I thought you were going to stop at pretty, but okay.
He was
Well,
hoping anyway.
I would have said handsome.
I think he's dreamy.
Now we're overstepping.
I think there's some stepping involved, but it's in something, not over something.
So y'all know my knees, so I can't step over too far.
Well, sorry to say, after following that, I don't have much to say this week. Obviously, the recording for the hashtag All the Horror, which was a blast. We've already talked about that. Just been kind of working on this other project that hopefully here in the not too distant future, the next couple of weeks, be happy to announce. Something kind of exciting is I'm hoping is going to come down, and I know we've in our discussions we're excited about this, and other parties are involved are excited about us being involved, and I just can't wait to tell you. But need to have a few more I's dotted and T's crossed, and get things set up, and I'll be ready to let everybody know what's going on. So just hang in there, guys, just a little bit more longer. It'll be worth the wait.
Yep.
Okay, before we get into this week's discussion, I do want to mention our upcoming meet and gab, which will actually have taken place by the time this drops. But we'll have one in October as well. We have a meetup every second Saturday of the month at 7 p.m. and we have it at Wing City, which is located at 1456 Beltline Road, Suite 120, and that's in Garland. The zip is 75044. So if you in the listening audience are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and want to come meet us or hang out with us, have some good food and some good conversations about things that are going on in the world of geekdom, by all means, come join us. These are always a blast, and I'm excited about the next one. It's always a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on the Events tab, there's all the information there, including a map of where Wing City is located. And if you're following us on Facebook, there is a Facebook event set up, so go check that out. It's going to be the same information, and if you're planning on going or just interested, if you select the appropriate button there, kind of let us know who all is going to be coming or who's interested, that would be great, and we hope to see you there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, what he said. All right, for this week, Liz was so excited about this that she's been prepared for about 2 weeks.
I think she was just confused about the dates. I don't think it was because she was excited.
I was confused. That's not hard to believe, though, right?
No comment. But we wanted to take a little time, and because I actually came across this fact a while back, and I was like, "Oh my God, I couldn't believe it." September 12th, 1969, the first episode of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Was first aired. So Scooby-Doo has been around for 50 years, guys.
Dogs don't normally live that long.
No. Especially big dogs.
Right.
Especially big dogs that talk.
Yep.
Those are rare.
So maybe those can't live for 50 plus years. I hadn't watched some of the later versions, but I always loved the original version and the Scooby-Doo mystery movies and some of the other offshoots off of that. I'm a fan of the show. There was just something about them. I don't know if it was just the characters or the stories or just kind of the look of the cartoon, because it was different compared to everything else that was out at the time. So much so that shows started mimicking the look of this show.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured for this week we would kind of talk a little bit about the Scooby Gang or Mystery Inc., however you view them as, and kind of just talk a little bit and kind of celebrate this anniversary. And the first thing that I was surprised when I was doing a little research on this is that it was created by Joe Ruby and Ken Spears of Ruby Spears, which, if you were a cartoon viewer of the 70s and really the 80s, oh God, that name was everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the last thing you saw at the end of the end credits. It was a Ruby Spears, and I did not know that. I mean, I knew it was Hanna-Barbera, but I hadn't thought about. I just kind of figured they created it, but that kind of surprised me.
And originally, it was pitched without a dog, and it was just supposed to be kids. But the networks were like, no, this is going to be way too scary, you know. You have to remember the kids back then. So they went in and they reworked it, and they added the dog. And even though, another piece of trivia, even though Scooby's supposed to be a Great Dane, he wanted to make him, like, so silly, I guess, not silly, but, you know, not a Great Dane, that some of their more pronounced features he changed up, like the straight back, he made them all hunched back. They have real small chins, and they made theirs all real big, and so, but yeah, I'm thinking now the show that was originally pitched was something along the lines of Goosebumps, and which was okay for the 90s, but not in the 60s.
You weren't ready for that in 69.
No, not at all. But I think I have probably seen every variation there is of Scooby-Doo. I've seen the old stuff. I watched the newer stuff. A lot of people don't like the newer stuff, and I don't care because it's Scooby and anything with dogs, and I'll watch it. Maybe that's where the love of dogs came from, you know, Scooby. But as much as I love dogs, I didn't really care for Scrappy very much.
Not many people do.
And, you know, the guy who wrote him in, he said Scrappy was to do one thing and one thing only, and that was to get us renewed for one season. And he did. He said, so he did his job. But after they did it, even the networks were like, maybe he's not a good role model for kids. You know, he's always not listening and...
Right, and attacking things. Honestly.
Yeah.
Leading with his fists.
Well, and running into the fire without a water hose, to where then everybody else has to run in and save you because you're the idiot who ran into the fire without a water hose. So yeah, that's pretty much Scrappy.
He's a good example of what not to do in most situations, which is really not the best way to pitch the character.
Yeah.
In a kid's show.
Especially to kids. Yeah.
Right.
And that's why he was like, no, he was never supposed to be a role model, guys. He was only supposed to get us renewed for one more season. Which I don't know. I'd have to look it up, but I don't know if Scooby has ever really left the air. Even when it was canceled, they still, there was reruns or another iteration was coming along or, and every Halloween, the Scooby specials.
Yeah, they managed to keep it syndicated pretty much nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
Which, good for them.
And Cartoon Network still plays the newer and the older Scooby.
Well, sure, they're owned by Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah.
Or were, or however that worked out.
Well, like the Powerpuff Girls, though, when they redid those, they no longer showed the older series. It was all just the newer. I won't say garbage. That's a pretty strong word.
Ouch.
Wasn't a real good reboot of that one, So I would be the same way. Let's play both,
Right, which is weird because that's an original. That's a Cartoon Network original, so you'd think they'd have it. Kind of makes you wonder why they didn't do that. I mean, honestly, when Netflix redid or did the new version of Danger Mouse, they put all of the old episodes up at the same time. And that was awesome because I hadn't seen those in years.
It's been years, yeah. But
just as an example, right?
It's just the newer stuff that they've played.
Weird.
And now I don't know if it's played anymore at all. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
on Cartoon.
Which makes you wonder why. I mean, because they hardly ever played them originally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were dying to see them, and they never showed them, or very rarely showed them. They would show 1 or 2 at a time here and there to fill things in. You couldn't count on it. You couldn't schedule it.
Mm-mm. Well, on Saturday they had the Bugs and Daffy show, which was like 30 minutes of.
Yeah, but that was at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Who the hell is up to watch that? Hell, I'm just going to bed.
Me. That's one thing you didn't mess around with on Saturdays was morning cartoons. You woke up, you were quiet, and as long as you didn't wake mom and dad up, you could eat as much sugary cereal and watch as much junk as you could before they did get up.
Yeah, times have changed.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Big time. They don't have Saturday morning cartoons anymore.
No, they don't. I mean, the flip side of that is they have streaming services where you can watch them whenever the hell you want. But
yeah, but
still,
what's the fun in that?
I don't know. I like watching things whenever the hell I want.
Well, yeah, me too. And if it comes on too early nowadays, you just record it. Like I said, I remember that being a big part of being a kid, waking up early on Sunday or Saturday. Got to see what happened to Spider-Man.
It's like soap opera for little kids.
It was, yep. And I think WB was the one who held out the longest with their Saturday morning, and then I watch on Saturdays now. I think it's Channel 5 has like a space thing and the SeaWorld thing and Jack Hanna and the other guy, Jeff Corwin. So they've kind of filled it with educational stuff, which is kind of cool, but it's not a Saturday morning cartoon.
Well, as I mentioned it may have been our special episode, so it's a little bit of a tease. we learned something from cartoons. We learned about the law of gravity.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you don't look down, you're okay. You can you can defy the law of gravity.
Or have hair tonic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Phil showed me this thing tonight, and it was Elmer Fudd and his Killed a Wabbit opera thing. And it says, have you ever been to the opera? And it says, I don't know. Does Elmer Fudd singing, does that count? You know, if so, then yes. Which was cool, because how many people know that song now because of Killed a Wabbit, Killed a Wabbit?
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the Oscar winners.
Yep.
So, I mean, clearly it struck a nerve somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's a 7-minute version, but it brings that whole thing to life for a group of people that never would have seen it or would never paid attention to it anyway.
No.
The whole 4-hour, however the hell long it is, opera. It at least stuck it in the brains of those kids at the time.
Yep.
Planted the seed.
Kind of like what Disney did with Fantasia, where they took some of the classics and put them to cartoons, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of classics, Scooby-Doo.
Oh, good. We're going to tie this back. Great.
We're going to tie this back. He actually got his name from Frank Sinatra. Which song was it? Strangers in the Night. And I think at the end he was saying Doobie Doobie Doo, and they're like, that's it. He is going to be Scooby Dooby Doo. Or Scooby Doo for short. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
There you go. Sinatra's influence all over the place.
Yeah. Crossovers. Man, have they had a lot of crossovers. We've had, what, Batman, Harlem Globetrotters, Laurel and Hardy, Don Knotts. How many times was Don Knotts on there?
Oh, 2 or 3 times at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dick Van Dyke, the Three Stooges, Mama Cass. I mean, some of these, today's kids wouldn't even know who the hell they are.
They wouldn't.
Hell, I didn't know who Mama Cass was when I first saw the cartoon 100 years ago. You know, Jerry Reed.
100 years ago.
Wait, we're talking about the 50th anniversary here, right?
I know.
Time travel.
Absolutely. Yeah, steampunk Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Oh, don't give them ideas. They may do that.
Yeah, no shit. Somebody does that, I want to cut. That was my idea. I said it first.
The Addams Family, Sonny and Cher.
But best, hands down, crossover was when they were on Supernatural. I liked the way they handled that because you still kept the kids with, you know, this isn't true. We're going to rip off the mask and there's going to be, you know, Old Man Jenkins. And of course with Supernatural, that's not the case. These are real monsters we're fighting. So at the end of the episode, when the kids finally realized, oh my God, that was a real monster, you see them kind of like freaking out. And it's like, oh my God, there's really monsters. What are we going to do? And
yeah, they've been doing this a long time. They've never seen a real monster.
Never. So it's kind of cool.
I don't know. I think I preferred their appearance in, I think it was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh, that was a good one, yeah.
Was a good one.
I was thinking their appearance on Johnny Bravo.
That was really good. That really was.
Forgot about
He wanted
that.
to be with Daphne.
Hi, your mama.
Mama. Yeah, you know your dog and talk.
And we even had a couple of Scooby-Doo games. We had some for the PlayStation, and I think one for the Xbox. And I'm wanting to say we had one for the Atari, too. I could be wrong on that, but I'm wanting to say I had one.
It
Had
came
to-
out about the same time as E.T. did.
I was going to say, had to have been better than E.T.
Oh, anything was better than E.T.
Or may have been buried with it, you know.
As someone who's played that game, yes,
Yeah.
that was horrible. That was a horrible game.
It was, yeah. I think there was kind of like no point. And I got to a certain level and you just couldn't move anymore. You couldn't do anything. So it's kind of like, what?
Well, it's so funny. Kind of going off topic here a little bit. Now think about it, it reminds me of their version of Empire Strikes Back. It was a game that just kept on going.
Yes.
Because in Empire Strikes Back, it's the battle on Hoth, and you're flying a snowspeeder, and you're supposed to take out these Imperial walkers, which keep coming. It's like, guys, come on, there was 5 in the movie. Why is there...
Why am I taking down number 17 now?
Why am I on number 50 and I'm showing no end in sight? Yeah. But that was the same thing with E.T. Because the whole purpose was you're playing E.T., you're left here on Earth, so you're having to run around trying to find all the parts to phone home and try to avoid the federal agents who's trying to capture you. And then, if you put it together, you phone home, now you got to go back to wherever you're supposed to for them to pick you up. And, it picks you up, and then next thing you know, it starts right over again.
Yep.
You're just like, wait a minute.
E.T. never made it home.
Like, why are you dropping me off again? What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go back there. It
They
sucks
didn't
there.
want you.
Mostly harmless. Mostly harmless.
And heaven forbid if you fall into one of those pits, because it takes forever to get you back up, and you just let go of the controller just a little bit, you fall back down, and you're going, oh, God.
Yep. And kids these days will never appreciate their save button as much as we do.
Oh, yeah, there was no save button.
There was, no.
Oh, save button.
You had to leave it on and hope your mom didn't come in there and turn it off while you were at school, you know. There was no save.
But you talk about them, the Scooby Gang not facing monsters. I mean, back in the late 80s when they started kind of doing the movies, they did a switch. They switched over to, that's where it was no longer bad guys in masks. They were actually dealing with monsters and spirits and all that. And the very first movie they did was Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, which I've watched several times and I thought was really, really well done.
Yeah.
And it's to the point now that to my knowledge, they've never gone back even once to go back and do the whole, okay, well, it's a guy in a costume trying to scare people away because this reason or that reason. It's all monsters and aliens and it's supernatural.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. I guess that's because of just kind of the change in the maybe it's just changing the viewership. I mean, obviously you have older viewers watching it as well, but maybe the younger generation kind of understands all that, and they're not threatened by or scared by this creature on TV. I don't know, but it's kind of interesting how they kind of did that.
Well, or maybe all of the producers who were getting older kind of realized what they were doing when they were putting out this show, which was training children to not trust older people.
But it also was teaching them that monsters weren't real. You know, that there was, and to me, I'll get even a little more creepier in it, that usually it's somebody you know. You know? And to me, that's a good message to send to your kid. Just because this is your coach, teacher, priest, whatever, doesn't mean that they're safe and that they can't be a monster or a bad guy behind the mask, you know? I said, took it a little dark there, but that's what I picked up from Scooby. Yeah. And they did do that, what was it, the 13 Masks of Scooby-Doo or something like that?
The 13 Ghosts.
The 13 Ghosts.
Yeah.
What's that? Vincent Price. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was real spirits and stuff in that one, too. And, you know, that's one that every once in a while, I guess probably right around Halloween time, Cartoon Network throws it up on there. And I always record it, and I try to watch all of it. But I've never seen an ending to it. So I don't know if it was canceled before they got all 13 pieces put together. But it was definitely a different vibe to Scooby. It wasn't your old man Jenkins Scooby. You know, this was... It was definitely different.
Well, and that's good. They're changing things up a little bit. Keeping it fresh. Keeping it interesting.
Yeah,
Appealing to a new group of people.
I don't know if they planned it to go beyond the 13, but then I think after that they followed it up with Be Cool Scooby-Doo, which, like I said, is probably the version of Teen Titans Go of Scooby-Doo. So it didn't really hit the audience that they were looking for either. Which is sad, because like I said, that one was kind of funny. It was silly, but I like silly funny, you know. I like the easy joke.
No. Shocked and appalled to hear this.
So did you guys care for the movies? The live action? Or, Dad, did you call that live action?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the dog was CGI, but the rest of them were people.
Yeah.
I never watched those. Hell, are you kidding?
Yeah, I did.
I've seen the first one.
Well, I mean, I'm not judging, but see,
No.
my deal is that Scooby-Doo never appealed to me, really.
Yeah.
Strangely enough. I think I hit it, or it hit me a little too late. I mean, I mentioned this not too long ago. I didn't get into cartoons until I was probably way older than I should have been. And so some of them obviously just didn't resonate. And Scooby-Doo was a little too... Scooby-Doo is probably partially why I can't stand sitcoms, because it was so formulaic. And I picked that up. And because I was in middle school or high school before I saw any of them. So I was well past the prime age. And so it all just seemed dumb to me. And I kind of never really gotten over that bias entirely.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I mean, my kid likes them, so I'm fine with them, but
I could see that, because I came into Scooby when it was kind of like, oh, wow. He pulled his face off, and that's not him, you know. So.
You see, joy and wonder were things that had left my life long before I came across Scooby-Doo.
That's pretty dark.
See, and that's why I watch cartoons, to keep that joy and wonder in my life.
Well, me
that's
too,
it.
just not Scooby-Doo, that's all. I stick in a DVD full of Warner Brothers cartoons if I'm going to do that. Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Or
Betty Boop,
Three Stooges
Felix
or
the
something.
Cat. I like those too. But I'm the kind, I will watch any cartoon. I will watch anything. That's why with kid shows and that kind of stuff, it doesn't bother me, because a lot of the time I'm sitting back going, wow, I can really appreciate the work that goes into that, whether it's CGI or hand-drawn, you know. So it's kind of, I don't know, I guess I like it from an art, that sounds so stupid, but, you know, from the talent perspective, it's kind of like, wow, you know.
Right. You
that takes a lot to do.
You're mature enough that you can appreciate the artistry.
Yes.
Whatever artistry it happens to be in that moment, be it the actual art or just the construction of the thing, or honestly voice talent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's honestly that's where I get kind of into some of that stuff. Is a lot of the voice talent stuff is just unbelievable.
Especially when you hear them speak in every day, and it's kind of like, wow, you don't sound like SpongeBob. You know, so it's to me, it's very impressive. And I guess, too, with the newer style of cartoon that they have nowadays, I've worked with 3D models and trying to paint those and texture those and that kind of thing. I mean, if you can make that thing move and talk, woohoo! I'm not worthy.
Aces in your book, huh?
Right, you go, boy. Or girl, you know. But yeah, because it's not as easy as people make it think, you know.
I mean, it looks effortless in the final product, but it's been through a lot of stuff to get there.
Well, you just can't plug "I want a dog and a tree" on the screen. You know, you have to make that dog. You have to make that tree. You can reuse those later, but someone still had to sit down and make that stuff. It's not a plug and play.
Yeah, and see that you can make that stuff later, or you can use it again later. That's something that Scooby-Doo was kind of pioneering in, or Hanna-Barbera specifically, was kind of pioneering in, because a lot of times before that they didn't. You repainted every cell by hand, and it was just it took forever. And when Hanna-Barbera came along and some of the others, and they in that time frame, and they started saying, okay, how can we make these cheaper?
Yeah.
You start figuring out that you're painting the same background every time. Well, screw that. Why would I do that? Paint it once, make a copy of it, and then paint stuff on top of it. Save a lot of time because you're only painting a little bit of stuff on top of it. You're painting the characters in the front.
Yeah. Well, most of them were just plastic cells laid over each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't really even have to copy anything. You just had to make sure your original didn't get wrecked.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you'd take real good care of your original cells.
And most of those, if you can find a hand-drawn cell, you're usually going to pay some good money for it.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
But can you imagine the talent that would go behind the hand drawing of a cartoon to make it walk, to make a dog talk? You know, each motion is a new picture.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, each motion that you think of as a motion is a lot more than just another picture. It's several pictures strung together in a lot of cases. So yeah, I mean, even those cookie cutter scenes of Scooby and Shaggy running down the hall that never ends and seems to loop forever. That's still, I mean, that's several frames just
it is
layered in over and over again.
And legs and elbows.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
Well, see, and that is one interesting thing I learned from South Park was when they were like, you know, you can keep your base. So with the legs and elbows, it was probably their bodies that was the stationary, and the cells that would move were the legs and arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all you really have to do is add on the elbows, like you said, arms and legs in the different positions. Yep. Everything else can be static. Sure.
So, yeah, I always enjoyed it. And back in the day, they used to do a show called Black and White, and it was probably at like 2 o'clock in the morning on Cartoon Network. But it would show you like Tex Avery and all of them, you know, who were drawing this kind of stuff. They'd kind of show you the background scene of how they did it. And then they would show you one cartoon, and they're like, but that wasn't the end of it. They redid this cartoon. You know, maybe they did that one in the 40s, and they redid this in 55, and then they would play that one. And it was kind of interesting, you know, especially from Tex Avery, when you see his beginning work to where he ended at, and it was like, wow, you know, you could just see the progress all the way through the show, you know, which is interesting. And like I said, you learn to appreciate that more because you saw how hard he worked, and it wasn't
just a few clicks on a mouse and everybody's done. That's not how it worked. They didn't have they didn't use mice for that.
Nope. There's a lot of pictures back and forth flipping to make sure you had everything lined, and you know, Tex Avery was the guy who gave us the wolf eyes. When the girl would walk by and the guy's eyes would go out real big. Pop and everything else. Yep. That was his specialty. Which probably wasn't easy to draw.
No, and imagine the imagination behind doing that the first time.
Yeah.
Here, I'm going to try this. Let's see what this looks like. Whoa, that's cool. Yeah.
And the other cartoonists who were like, wow.
Well, and the other ones who were standing around and like, holy crap, what are you wasting your time on that for? Right. That looks insane. That's stupid. Nobody's going to buy that. They bought it.
They bought it.
Never really know what people are going to buy until you try to sell it to them.
Right?
I'm thinking Les has been conspicuously quiet here.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
This was, I'm sorry, I'm like Mike. This was past my age group. This appeared when I was in college, freshman in college. So I had enough problems than to find a new comic or a new cartoon show. I do enjoy it. I think it's outstanding. And yes, the examples you folks gave for best are formidable, and I have to agree with the Johnny Bravo episode. Because when they said that there was going to be a Johnny Bravo episode, I had to make sure that I was in front of my television to see this for the first time, and that's one that I will look up on demand to rewatch, because it is so much fun. And it hits on so many levels. As far as the spin-offs and things go, did they not do one with the Harlem Globetrotters? Yeah, they did Harlem Globetrotters. Did they do one with Bob Denver and
The Gilligan's Island bunch?
Gilligan's Island?
I'm wanting to say they did.
That sounds
'Cause
about right, yeah.
It does. I couldn't locate it, so but yes, I'm wanting to say that you are correct on that. If not, I'm confusing the crossover with the Globetrotters between the two.
Now, I know there was a Gilligan's Island cartoon, but I can't recall Gilligan and Scooby meet, but that doesn't mean that hadn't happened. I can't recall it right now, because that's probably not one that gets played a lot. Because I know the Gilligan's Island cartoon doesn't play.
Yeah. I had almost forgot about the Gilligan Island cartoon.
The movies I enjoyed. I thought they found some good actors that represented the characters, especially the gentleman that played Scooby. He pulled off our rock and roll icon to the T. Also, husband and wife, I thought were good in that one. Freddie Prinze and
Sarah Michelle.
Yes. And Miss Cardinelli, I thought, was spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
She was the one that hit closest to me. I thought she was most outstanding.
Really?
I did,
yeah. I thought she was great, but closest. To me, I thought it was Matthew Lillard as Shaggy. I mean, right down to the voice, the voice and the acting and all that. I mean, I thought he captured Shaggy real well. But it's hard to argue with what you're saying.
She just personified. She, to me, brought the character to life. And yes, Matthew Lillard did also in his stint. And I'm sure that there are times that these actors probably regret having done this series of movies. But yeah, I think it's obviously a successful franchise, because it keeps coming back in various forms. Mm-hmm. There's no way to stop this from moving forward, which is a boon. It's definitely something that was needed at that time. So I think kudos are in order. That was just that good.
And actually, the latest version is a nod to the Scooby movie, the Scooby-Doo mystery movies that were in the early 70s. The Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. So every episode has a guest star.
See, I found out that the Gilligan Island was when they did the new Scooby-Doo movies. That's when Wonder Woman and He-Man and all of them were on there. Popeye, I think, was on there. So yeah, they did meet the castaways.
Okay. But they never went to the other side of the island to see that's where Lost was taking place, right?
They were just dreaming. But as a kid with Gilligan's Island, that's one thing I was always kind of like, how come everybody else can figure out how to get off the island and they can't?
Man,
and if you can build a hut and a radio and a shower, why can't you fix your boat?
It's a totally different kind of science, that's what I'm saying. But, just sometimes you just have to let it go.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make for much of a show if they could just get off the island whenever they wanted.
Off the island. Yep.
It's a plot device.
It is.
If it's a good plot device, that's questionable.
Right, yeah, we're not going down that road, for sure.
No.
But it served its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It did.
Apparently, there is an animated feature film in the works.
Okay.
That is, it appears, I'm kind of getting sketchy information here, but it appears to be scheduled for next year.
Cool.
I think I had heard there was a new Scooby movie, too.
Yeah, it was originally slated for 2018, and it got pushed to 2020. And it's got, like, Hollywood stars doing the voice work, which is, a little iffy, but it just, it doesn't always work. I guess that's my problem, is that it just doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Do they have a listing of some of them, or?
Yeah. They've got Zac Efron as Fred Jones, Gina Rodriguez as Velma, Amanda Seyfried,
yeah.
as Daphne, William Fort is Shaggy, Frank Welker is Scooby. But it also looks like it'll have Tracy Morgan, Mark Wahlberg, Ken Jeong, Kirstie Clemens, and Jason Isaacs.
Whoa.
So it's packed.
Yeah. You gotta love that Frank Welker is
still around.
Yeah.
Yep.
That 50 years in, he's still doing the voice. You gotta love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the original Freddy.
Yep.
And now does Scooby.
Started doing Scooby a few years in and has been doing it ever since, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, you talk about that whole voiceover actor crowd. He's one of the greats. He's been around forever, and he's always done stellar work. So.
Yep.
He's one that a lot of them look up to anyway, so they love working with him.
Brandon used to be a really, really big Scooby-Doo fan. And when he was younger, he would always do that, row, couldn't talk and say very much, but he'd always make out the row. Well, his birthday is like 7 days before Sean's birthday. And so most of the time they had a birthday party together. Now, Sean's my age, But he'd share his birthday with Brandon. Well, Sean went through this phase where he kind of let his hair grow out and got the goatee going and stuff, tried to copy Phil a little bit. And we all started calling him Shaggy. So we had a Shaggy and we had a Scooby. So one of their birthday parties, their cake was a Scooby-Doo cake. But Brandon, of course, is no longer called Scooby. And Sean, to this day, we all still call him Shaggy. He's cut his hair, he's cleaned up, but he's still Shaggy.
Some nicknames just stick.
Stick, yep.
Yep. Some better than others.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But out of all the dogs I've ever owned, I've never named one Scooby. It's kind of weird.
It would be weird I would think it would be weird to name a dog Scooby because there's already a dog named Scooby-Doo. Come on.
Yeah. And Magnum PI had a dog named Zeus, and I did too.
Yeah, but Zeus is different. Zeus is
a god.
Mythological name, right? Or one of the guys from the Die Hard movies, depending on where you want to go with that.
Yeah. Zeus got his name because we had Spartan, who we named after watching 300.
Yeah.
So that's how you introduce them. This is Spartan.
This is Spartan.
Here's my other dog, Coors.
Course, and then taco to go with your beer. Now I'll have to get a dog named Scooby. So next week.
Yeah, we want to hear this. Next week we want to hear the whole story of how you talked Phil into this.
Yeah.
But even with my
should be
rescue
fun.
group, I don't think I've seen a dog named Scooby come through. So maybe that'll be the sign. Tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Perhaps you will name the dog Scooby.
Right. Change it.
All right. On that note, I guess we are going to take a quick break and come back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and Mike leads off this week.
Alrighty, I lead off. So my first pick is a Dark Horse book, and I am picking Critical Role Vox Machina Origins number 3. This is not surprisingly based on the stories from Critical Role, which, if you're not familiar with Critical Role, what the hell rock have you been hiding under? But seriously though, it is
It's like, really? What rock?
No, seriously, which rock? Show me the rock. No. No, Critical
Show
Role.
me the money.
Critical Role is one of the things that is almost single-handedly brought Dungeons and Dragons into the mainstream. They started out as a streaming thing on Twitch, and it has blown up, and it's essentially an actual play podcast, kind of in streaming form, and it has just gotten ridiculously popular. These are the same folks that, with the Kickstarter and the animated series and the breaking all kinds of records for Kickstarter campaigns and all of that, that's them.
Wow.
But yeah, so this is the second series of this book, I believe. And it's a cool fantasy story. It's a little crazy and kind of hilarious at times, and it's a lot of fun. So I highly recommend checking it out.
Does sound good.
Yeah, I've watched some of that on Twitch. It's on Thursday evenings, and there's like thousands of people watching this. And it's a trip, and the books have been good too. So yeah.
Yep. And actually, Tom, I can hook you with this in 2 words.
Mm-hmm.
Jody Hauser.
There you go. That will do it.
She's writing this book, so there you go.
Yep.
Good choice.
Yep. Alrighty. I am next, and for my first pick, I'm going with a Dark Horse book. There's going to be some Dark Horse love in this week.
Mm-hmm.
It is a new miniseries called Steeple. It's written by John Allison, the author of Giant Days. That was a Boom Studios title. I don't know if we talked a lot about this series, but sorry?
Yeah, I don't remember if we talked a lot about it, but it was a pretty successful series, Giant
It
Days.
was which just wrapped up here real recently. After I believe 65 issues. That's a hell of a run.
That is a really good run.
That is a really good run. So this is a new miniseries. It's a 5-issue miniseries that's written and illustrated by John Allison, and it's a tale of 2 women who become unlikely friends while they battle the supernatural. So it's great timing considering their subject matter and all that. This ought to be really good. Like I said, Giant Days has been it's not been one of those we've talked a little bit about, but there's so many good titles. It's kind of hard to shine light on everybody, but it was a good book. And the writing was part of the reason. So I'm excited about this one. This one looks really, really good.
That sounds good.
So next is Les.
As the third choice, I'm going to bring in American Mythology's Pellucidar, Wings of Death #1. Hopefully you've been reading the books from American Mythology where they have tapped into characters from famous books and or movies. This too is one of those where you find the Fear of 4 Worlds is still going on by way of American Mythology, their series. And in this, the Segoths and the Horribs collide. These are 2 tribes collide, and the repercussions are in this are carried in this series. This is what has happened, and we're spawning from that. So the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe is once again touched, and I've been reading these, and I really highly recommend them, especially when they start to span over 4 major titles. So step on up and try this one out.
Cool.
Sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm.
And what's been really cool about these is they're all the Burroughs characters and properties, but it's not the ones that were, the ones that are the most popular, the John Carters and that kind. It's the other ones. So they're getting the spotlight, which is cool.
Yes.
Yep.
So, alrighty, Liz.
All right. For my first pick, I'm going with a trade, which I've talked about the single issues when it was coming out, and it's Umbrella Academy Hotel Oblivion. This is actually I don't know if you would call it a second arc in the line. This is the second volume. The first one recap 43 women who weren't even pregnant on the same day give birth to kids. This rich billionaire guy, he adopts 7 of them, and of course it all turns out that they have superpowers and that kind of stuff. The second arc actually comes through because in the first book they kind of all broke up. They kind of disbanded as a team because of what happened in that book. And the second one, they are coming together after Hargreaves, the guy who adopted all of them, he's died. And they kind of come together to put the mystery. But kind of behind the scenes, it shows you where Hargreaves has gone. And, he's kind of in hell. So, but it's a hell he's created, which is kind of weird. But if you're a fan of the
really.
Right, exactly. So if you're a fan of the series on Netflix, this is where it all began. This second series here was launched to kind of kickstart the Netflix series. So definitely worth a read. It's a good concept for the book, and they've never really strayed from the story they're trying to tell, which is really good, especially the time lapse that was between the two. So, like I said, if you're a fan or even just want to know kind of the background on this, these are definitely worth the time. And I said, this is it. This is the second one.
Cool.
Well, maybe, hopefully, Gerard will do more, but, he's busy with Doom Patrol and stuff now.
True.
Poor guy. Jeez.
Poor guy. Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty, Mikey, you're up again.
Okie dokie. My second pick is actually also a trade. This is from a slightly different place, though. This is from a company called Marcosia Enterprises, which is in England. And the book is Geek Girl Crime War. This is volume. This is a volume 2 trade. So this collects 4 issues of a book called Geek Girl. It is about a young woman who acquires a pair of glasses that are essentially super technology, and they turn her into a superhero. And she's based out of a town in Maine. And actually, the funny thing is that this volume 2, is not Ruby's story. It is actually the story of her friend Summer, who, when Ruby has been badly injured at the end of the first arc, Summer kind of picks up the mantle for a little while, and it kind of turns into her story. And it's a very interesting. It's kind of the idea of superheroes in what's not a very big town is an interesting take on it. And Summer's story is kind of a fun way of getting a different perspective on all of that. And this is a book that is available now. You can get it. And I'll put links in the show notes. You can get it either through Amazon or through their website, which is geekgirlcomics.com. And like I said, I'll link it. But it's a really good read.
Yep.
Yep.
Good choice. Definitely a good choice.
Yes, sir.
I am next, and more Dark Horse love here. This is an omnibus for a character that I've heard a lot about, but I've never checked out. The books, so I want to pick this up just because it's omnibus and I get a chance to actually read these stories. And this is Flaming Carrot Comics, Omnibus Volume 1. This collects Flaming Carrot 1 and 2, 4 through 11, and 25 through 27, and it also features a crossover with the Turtles.
Ooh.
So, like I said, this is one of them that I've heard about Flaming Carrot, and I've obviously seen images of the character for several years, but I've never read any of the books. So here's my chance to correct that, and I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I've heard quite a bit about them too. So I would be interested in checking this out as well.
I am of the same ilk. It's good. It was funny stuff, and I would want a copy of that myself.
Alrighty, Les, you're up again.
Okay, from Aftershock Comics comes You Are Obsolete, #1. Brought to you by Matthew Krickstein and Evgeny Bornekamp. In this, you have a journalist who is called to cover a mysterious story on a European island. When she investigates, she finds that the children have taken control and are using a new app to kill off the adults. The journalist must now discover the truth and find who the children's leader is, or she may pass away herself. So, to me, this is, as Liz pointed out pre-show, that this is like Children of the Corn meets Cell. So I got a feeling that this is going to be a knockout of the series, and hopefully we will see this one adapted for one of the Amazon Prime or Netflix or something like that too.
That would be pretty cool.
It sounds dark.
Yeah, so it's right down your alley, Mike.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, since I didn't have a dark horse, I needed
You had to pick something, yeah.
He had to have a dark horse in the race.
Ow.
I told you I like the easy ones.
Yeah, that was the easy one, all right.
the low-hanging fruit. Yes.
There's also kind of a Village of the Damned vibe to this, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not brightening it up.
No, it's not.
Okay, just making sure.
I don't know if we could brighten that story up. If you're over 40, you're dead.
Their eyes closed, so that kind of brightens.
That would be, yeah, that's good. That's a start.
There you go. There we go. All right, Liz.
All right. My second pick is from DC Comics. If you guys read Heroes in Crisis, it kind of ended like really, really messed up. I mean, we find out, and spoilers here in case you haven't read it, but we basically found out that Flash, Wally West, killed a lot of superheroes and tried to blame Booster Gold and Harley Quinn for it. And then, to cover that up, that he's done all this, he tries to go back in time to kind of kill himself, so he doesn't have to face it, which of course, Justice League being Justice League, they come in and put him in jail. Well, this story will pick up after that. The multiverse has pretty much written him and his family out of existence. So Wally West has to figure out, have to fix the damage once again to the timeline that he always messes up. But, also the damage that he did in Heroes Crisis, So definitely I think this is going to be one of 6. So it should be a good story. Hopefully they fix some of how they really met. I was shocked to find out that it was Flash in Heroes Crisis. I really was. I wasn't expecting that at all. So this should be a good follow-up to that and kind of repair some of that damage that's been to this character. Because he's not a Boy Scout.
No kidding.
He killed a lot of Titans.
Now this has time travel involved?
I don't know. I would assume that he will have to go back in time and to fix some of this, but if the multiverse has already rewritten him out of that he may not be able to do that.
Because Flash going back in time and trying to fix things always works well.
Always works.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
You don't have to read the comic books to know that. Just watch the damn TV show.
Yeah. Well,
this sounds like one for Mike. Time travel
involved,
right?
Yeah.
But some of what he's messed up has been some really good material. Like I think Tom King's using some of it over in Batman right now.
Didn't Tom King write Heroes in Crisis?
Did he?
I think so.
Did he? He may have.
Yeah, that's just one more nail in a lot of people's coffins for him. There's a lot of hate on for him.
I didn't put that together until you just said that. But, yeah, because of what's going on over there, he's using a lot of stuff from Flashpoint. So it would kind of make sense that the guy who originally messed that up, too. So we give him a little hate in another series, you know.
The thing that really kind of upsets me about a lot of this stuff is there is, whether it's intentional or not, I don't know, but there sure is a lot of them, what they're doing to the original Titans.
Yeah.
Okay, now Wally West is a killer. Dick Grayson was injured by a bullet, and now he has an alternate personality. He's not a superhero and all that kind of stuff. Just there's just like a big hate on for the original Titans, and I just don't get it.
Well, and I've tried not to spoil this too much, but just what they did in Batman, he didn't have any superpowers, but I considered him the biggest Titan in DC. You know what I'm saying? He kind of kept everybody balanced. Even when Superman and Batman were fighting, there was enough respect for that man to stop, you know, just because of who he was. So to kill him off, who's been the backbone and moral compass, it was kind of like, wow, you always left him alone. You know? I'm hoping it winds up being like an Earth 2 guy instead of the original. That's what my hope is, but
yeah.
I won't hold my breath on that one.
Alrighty, and our honorable mention is...
Okay, well, almost just for chuckles, our honorable mention this week is a Dark Horse book. And we're picking the... this calls it a graphic novel. I'm not sure, but that's all right. It'll be fun anyway. The Comic Book Legal Defense Fund presents Selling Comics, The Guide to Retailing. And this is a little bit different because it's essentially a book of collected articles on how to kind of start, own, operate, run a comic shop. And that to me just seems like a really interesting thing to put out there like this. I like the idea. It's certainly a way to try to encourage people to give it a shot and build their own kind of local comic shop vibe thing. I think it's an interesting idea, and I'm kind of curious to check it out.
Or if you're in it and struggling, maybe this is some ideas, you know, that other people have done.
Absolutely.
I think it's always best to hear firsthand from somebody than try to read a manual, you know?
Well, and it's not like there's really a manual for that either. I mean, there's
No.
very vague stuff you can find, like textbooks and stuff on how to blah, blah, how to be boring and open a shop. But, yeah, this is, I mean, the idea that this is geared specifically, obviously, for comic shops, I think that's kind of awesome.
That is.
Well, and the reason why there can't really be a textbook, because what works in one store doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in another store.
Right.
True.
Because of various factors, demographics, location, and so on and so forth. So.
And how saturated that area is.
Mm-hmm.
And basically down to who you buy your comic books from.
Well, there's not a ton of choice in that regard,
no,
but you know,
none.
Right.
Yep.
Cool.
That is a good idea. I'm glad somebody thought of that and did that.
And who's the publisher?
Dark Horse.
Dark Horse with the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund.
Yeah, the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund is the one who put it together.
Okay.
And in case people are wondering who the Comic Book Defense Legal Fund is, they were actually founded because of, wasn't there a picture on a comic book? And a kid saw it, and the comic book store wound up getting sued, and they lost everything because, you know, you showed pornography basically back then to a child. So the fund got set up to kind of help. Am I correct on that, Thomas? They kind of set up to help other people who get stuck in situations like that instead of losing everything, tell us what your legal options are.
It basically, or it fights censorship.
Yeah.
When a book may get banned for a library, they may get involved and all that. So there's several goals and objectives for the Legal Defense Fund.
But it's kind of like their own helping their own,
Yeah, I mean they're fighting for the First Amendment right of publishers and creators and retailers
and shop owners, yeah.
Yep, for selling it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
Alrighty, any special shout-outs this week?
No, I don't have nothing.
No.
Nothing here.
Okay. We'll move on to our regular shout-outs. Obviously, the first one would be Pop Those of Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be part of their network. It's a great group of podcasts that we recommend you check out. I always have a link in our show notes, so go check them out. And by all means, we highly suggest you go check out our fellow podcasters, affectionately known as Podern Family on Twitter. And the easiest way to check them out is just do a search, #Podern Family, and just scroll through, and if something catches your eye, just download that episode, and hope you have a good time. Maybe you've added another podcast to your listening habits. Thank you guys for your support. I also want to thank Vanity Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. Well, there will be a link in our show notes for you to check out their music. Got a couple of EPs there. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We appreciate your support as always. We would love to hear from you. Any kind of feedback, comments, questions, complaints, suggestions, observations, whatever, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. And there are several ways you can do that. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and click on the About Us tab, and there's a contact form there that you can fill out. You can also follow us on social media. I mentioned earlier that we're on Facebook, the Fellowship of the Geeks. We're obviously on Twitter, @Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us on both platforms. If you like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, by all means. Mike can be found at MikeyGeek. Liz can be found at @LN_geek. And I can be found at TomTCgeek. And wherever you download our episodes, if you would be so good as to rate and review our episodes, it would be greatly appreciated. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate you listening.
Thank you for listening once again, everybody. We do appreciate your support as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter @Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,